And I started pondering at that moment, like, wow, wouldn't it be great if everyone in our lives had that same grace, positivity, and support? And so it really began this thought for me about, as teachers, but beyond that, as people, how can we offer grace, positivity, and support always?
Hi, I'm Jason Ramsden, and I believe we can all work on leading a more positive and intentional life. And this show details my journey by sharing my learning, stories, and conversations with guests. If you want to lead a more intentional life focused on being the best you possible, please subscribe today. Now, let's get into today's episode. Hello, my Positivity Posse, and welcome to another episode of Positivity on Fire. Today, I am happy to share with you my interview with Mike Cobb, head of school at All Saints Episcopal School in Tyler, Texas. Mike is a fascinating leader with a compelling philosophy focused on G.P.S, grace, positivity, and support. And in today's episode, you'll get a glimpse into how G.P.S works at Mike's school, as well as some impactful lessons for his students. I hope you enjoy today's show. Well, hello, Mike Cobb. As they say down south, it's been a minute.
Good to see y'all, I reckon. That's some other Texas slang I can throw out. No, everything is great. It's great to be with you today.
Well, I'm glad to have you. Good to see you in person. It's been a while since we've connected. I would love for you to tell my listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. Well, I'm Mike Cobb, and I'm currently the head of school at All Saints Episcopal School in Tyler, Texas. That is just to the east of Dallas and the beautiful Piney Woods. And we're a school that has 3 rows through grade 12, and we have about 700 students on campus on a 150-acre campus that we've been able to really leverage some really great outdoor learning and really focusing on authentic learning student agency. And beyond that, I'm married to a wonderful woman who is a teacher too. So that's what's kept me going all along. And I have a daughter who is 23 who's just jumped out into the adult world. So that's been a fun adventure as well, getting to experience that point of life with her.
As you know, we probably have a lot in common. Like, having done 30 years in education, my wife is a brand new head of school. So she's living that head of school life like you are. And I have 2 kids, 23 and 21. One's just graduated college, getting ready to get out there themselves, and the other one getting ready to go back this week for senior year.
Wow.
It's that time of year, right? All schools are getting ready to be fired up and moving on.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's been such a blessing for me to get to enjoy watching so many families go through the learning process and the journey, but then also as a father getting to watch it now on the other end. I didn't always get to know all the next steps for our students. We stay in contact, but you don't see them as intimately as you do while they're with you. But watching it through my daughter's eyes, I have a deeper appreciation for what it looks like after they leave our schools now.
I love that. I really like, right, being able to see kids move on, progress, do the things they were meant to do in life. It's so exciting, not only just for our own kids, as parents, but also for the kids that we know that have been through our schools that we may have stayed connected to. I think it says a lot about the types of schools we work in or have worked in, where the kids feel really comfortable about staying connected back to the institution and the people that were in the institution. I'm curious because your school is, I think on your website it says it's one of inquiry, innovation, and impact. Mm-hmm. And Mike, what I'm really want to dive into is the impact part, because that's a big part of what I believe in. How does that live out day to day in the school life for you?
Yeah, that has been really my passion for a long time, is that, I talk a lot about authentic learning and student agency, but that if you are attempting to have those two things, but there's no impact from the learning, if there's no next step, then I don't really believe you can have authentic learning. And you certainly don't have kids that want to have agency, because there's no relevancy. There's no importance in what they're learning or what they're going to do with it. And so for us, in every single grade level at every age, our students are challenged to whatever you're learning now. How can you do something with that to impact the world? And not just the kind of impact that you hear often where it's like, when I grow up kind of statements, but no, right now, what can you do? We have students that are building prosthetic devices for people all over the world. We have a group that does Makers on a Mission, where they work with UT Tyler here in East Texas to build assistive technologies for people that need them. And then we have things like our kids who are chicken farmers in second grade that are actually nurturing and nourishing our chickens to sell eggs in carpool to help bring about sustainable food. And so really helping students today learn they can actually have an impact is vital, I think, to having a truly authentic experience for our students that will make them leaders that are prepared for the future.
So how does that, obviously they're impacting the world around them, whether it's local or in the state or elsewhere. What is the impact back on them as kids and their developmental learning?
Huge. I mean, I think, again, that when you're able to help a student, one, understand that what they know or they're learning is relevant. We talk a lot about moving from learning to knowing by doing, that once you do that, then you are going to see the relevancy and you're going to want to intrinsically know more. I tell you a great story. A student named Jet, who was a great musician, had been using some of our Fab Lab resources, but really cared more about music, was in the recording studio way more than he was using the 3D printers. But he developed a problem with his hand where when he was strumming for long gigs, he couldn't grip the guitar pick anymore. So he decided he was going to figure out how to solve his problem. He created this really cool device that held a guitar pick that you didn't have to have grip strength. It basically went through your hands like a ring. That was pretty cool. And he solved his own problem. He then decided to get a patent for it. And then he got recognized in the newspaper. Well, this older gentleman named Charlie saw his picture on the cover of the paper, and he called in. And Charlie was almost 80 years old, had played the banjo his whole life, but hadn't played for the last 2 years because he had crippling arthritis. And so he came in and he met with Jet, and Jet sized him for one of these devices that allowed him to play the banjo again. And I watched that moment, and I still get chills talking about it now because I watched Jet, his whole countenance changed. And I knew at that moment that Jet was going to be chasing that for the rest of his life, right? I want to learn something that I can know and then do something with it that has impact on the world. I no longer had to give Jet any external motivators for why he might want to do something. He had the intrinsic desire to know and do more.
That's absolutely amazing. And I'm a big believer in Impact 1 or Impact 1 million. There's no difference.
Absolutely.
Clearly, Jet has impacted one person, probably more than that, but one that was able to come forward and let you all know and then get involved in the school. And that in and of itself is going to, I think, probably, or has probably changed Jet's whole perception about the learning by doing.
Absolutely. And again, it has this ripple effect, right? I mean, certainly, like you say, he's impacting Charlie and others. But then also you watch that, like it's impacted me, right? I'm an old guy, but watching Jet has inspired me to want to learn and know and then do more, right? And that's what we can all hope for. I agree with you that it's whether it's 1 or a million, the impact, you have no idea what that's going to be. But we have to move our schools away from these external motivators that are bringing extrinsic reasons for kids to do it that they don't connect to, right? And that unfortunately, too many schools are still programmed under that system. And we have to realize that we have to change the way we think about what our kids are learning, how they're expressing it, and then what they can do with it.
I love it. Just kids getting inspired to learn and to have an impact. I think that speaks volumes of like what comes next in the next generation of kids.
Yes.
That you're doing to get kids to realize what the connection is to the real world is an important part. Now, I know at All Saints, one of the things you talk about is grace, positivity, and support. I think you call it G.P.S., which makes sense. Tell me more about that. I was intrigued when you had mentioned that we were exchanging emails pre-show.
The idea of G.P.S., it actually goes back a few years when my family and I were on a road trip. We love road trips, and we were driving around, and we were actually driving towards the east. And I had my GPS on, and I love sharing the story that my wife and I have always loved road trips. But early in our marriage, I think our marriage almost ended because of the Atlas. It was pre-GPS, and my wife was supposed to be the navigator, not a job she signed up for, but was given. And we end up in a big fight nearly every time we went on a road trip, because I blame the navigator, she blamed the pilot. And when the first GPS came out, it was the first Garmin we got that had the overlays and everything, right? Like I realized like, hey, this is going to save our marriage. Like we actually might make it now. And, but so I have been always a kind of a front runner on the GPSs. I've always tried to have the newest, the latest, and the greatest because it's to save my marriage. So we were on this road trip though, and I was using my GPS. And as we were traveling, I got off track. Honestly, I just wasn't paying attention, and I missed my turn. And first of all, I reveled in the moment that I wasn't uptight or worried because I knew that immediately it was about to recalculate. And that's what my GPS said. It said recalculating in such a pleasant tone, and then just put me back on a new path to where we were wanting to go. And I started pondering at that moment, like, wow, wouldn't it be great if everyone in our lives had that same grace, positivity, and support? Not the GPS as far as global positioning, but that she had grace, that she didn't start off saying, hey, why did you not listen? Are you dumb? What's going on with you? Right? She just said, recalculating in the same tone she tells me to take a left or a right. And it was positive and it was helpful. And then I also really started thinking about also as we were traveling, there were many times where I needed to get gas or we need to find some other support along the way. And all I had to do is just tell her what I wanted. And she didn't, again, get mad and say, well, you didn't plan that at the beginning, or why do you need that now? You should have got gas earlier. She just told me how to get it. And so it really began this thought for me about as teachers, but beyond that, as people, how can we offer grace, positive, and support always? There are times where we have students or our colleagues that get off track accidentally. And then there are sometimes they just take a left and we tell them to take a right. They do it on purpose. But if we can offer the grace to say, just recalculating, and we don't judge, and we just give them the new path to go on to the journey that we're going on, and then offer the positive tone, but also support along the way. I say often that one thing I know for sure with our students is that I don't know everything they're going to need from now until the time they graduate. It's going to be an awful lot of new things added. There's going to be gas that's needed. There's going to need support, bathroom breaks, everything in between. And we have to be willing to do that. So it's become this really important mantra for us here at All Saints that we're going to have GPS on. I love the idea of really powered common language, though, because we can just say it. Like there are times whenever I'm about to lean into something, I know it's going to be difficult for our team or our colleagues. And I was like, guys, we need to crank our GPS up right now. Today, I literally in an email said our GPS needs to be on tilt for the next 2 weeks, right? Like that language, though, lets us know what is going to be needed and what is expected. And it's just been really helpful for us to understand that. And then one last part of that for me is that I also remind folks that if you want your GPS on, you've got to be a GPS to others, right? So you can't just be always receiving it. You also have to be that GPS for those that are around you. You can't just be a receiver. It doesn't work that way. And so we've really focused on that over the last few years too. If you feel like the GPS is not helping and you don't feel the grace, positive support, maybe you haven't been also giving it in that time period that you're not feeling it.
Common language is such a huge part of leadership and being a leader. And so I appreciate that you bring that to the table. When you look back at this past year, right, everything that you had to do to get ready for last school year, COVID came in March and made its way across the country. How did GPS help you last year?
It was huge. And, the interesting thing I would add, though, is that it helped us as a faculty. We had already gotten our mind around it, and we really used that grace, the positive support to just get through. But we also extended it to our families and our parents. And I had talked to our broader community about this, but we really hadn't really pushed it in the way that we had with our faculty as kind of that common language. But in the last year, I can tell you, our families now know GPS as well as our teachers and faculty and staff, that they understand that there was no way we were going to get through the challenge that we had in front of us unless we were willing to do that, willing to offer that grace when something didn't work out quite right, when we were trying to do our e-learning, our remote learning, or to offer the positivity when we didn't have a plan, but we just knew we were going to have to go together and lean in, and then of course the support. I mean, we had to have support from every angle this year. Without the community effort, we would not have been able to have a full school year where we were successful in our outcomes.
So when you look back on last year, what was the most defining moment in your life this past year?
Wow. That's a deep question. I think that there were a lot of defining moments. I don't know that I can give a moment, but I can tell you what really the lesson, I guess, that I feel like I learned is that, one, we don't have to always know the answer. As someone who's been in school a long time, but also have been in leadership roles for many decades, I think there's always this feeling that we have to have the answer, and we have to be willing to say, okay, you asked a question, ask an answer. Here we go. I learned this year that I couldn't do that. And what I found, though, was that it was okay. I never gave a non-response, but I often would say that we don't know the answer to that, but here's what we're doing to try to get to that answer, right? And that people were really happy with that. And so I grew as a leader in the uncertainty, and often use the VUCA term. It was certainly volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous this year. And that being a leader in that meant that at times you had to be vulnerable enough to say, we don't know, but here are the things that we're doing. And when the answer is known, we're on it, right? So that was a big lesson for me.
So when you look back on that, the lesson that you learned there is, okay, you don't have to have the answer all of the time. What was something that you learned about yourself in that process, just as a person?
I learned one is that, I am an Enneagram 8, right? So I know that for me that I don't like that, right? I want to be able to challenge and ask and answer. And I learned that's just part of my mentality. Sometimes that's really great for me. That makes me good at my job. This past year, if I hadn't learned to be more vulnerable and step back from that kind of instinctual desire to be the answerer, I was going to get in a lot of trouble this year, right? I was going to try to create an answer when there wasn't one. And so that was the lesson I learned. And I feel like even though there's still a lot of ambiguous things and questions and things hovering above us right now, I feel like I've found myself in less challenging questions, being able to say, I don't know. But here is what we're doing to try to get to the bottom of that, or how we're working as a team to come up with the best solutions. And it's just, to me, it's really been a relief. And I honestly felt like through much of the year, though the pressure was high, the stress was low, and I don't know that everyone felt that way. And there were probably times where I probably showed a little differently than I feel now in retrospection. But I really do feel like many times this year, I was able to not let the stress get to me as much as it had in the past because of this kind of revelation.
So when you look back on last year, right, you talk about the stress and it not being as stressful. Where do you turn for positivity? Where do you look for the P in your G.P.S? Where does that come from for you personally?
Well, first of all, my faith is where I get my positivity from. Is that, I'm a believer, and I know that there's a positive outcome at the end of all this, right? No matter what today holds or whatever is in front of me, that I know down the road that I have faith in an outcome that will be glorious and beautiful. But also, I'm an educator, and I do challenge all the time that if you're an educator and you can't go join the Optimist Club, you ought to quit. And I know that's a really challenging statement, but remember, I'm an Enneagram 8, but I just have a hard time, because as an educator, you ought to be in this because you are absolutely an optimist. You have positivity that what we're doing has an impact on others. The world's going to be a better place because of what we do. And if you don't have that mentality, I don't know how you get up every day and do what we do. Because I believe this generation of kids is smarter, stronger, and more caring than the last one, right? And I believe the one coming behind them is going to outpace them. And that's why I love what I do.
You sure you're not a closet Enneagram 2? Because I'm a type 2. So, we're like servants. That's how we go. We like to be hosts and hostesses. We like to help people. So last year was, I also agree, was a tough year, but it was also super satisfying, having worked, and led an IT team to get people through the hybrid model. It's just one of those things where I agree. If you're not in education and you can't feel like you can be helpful and optimistic about what's coming next for our kids, then perhaps it's maybe time to think about making a switch.
Exactly.
I know I may have some listeners out there who may not agree with me on that particular point, but I think, we're there to serve kids and to teach them how to be resilient, how to be positive, how to have a growth mindset. That's going to change things for lots of people, the impact is going to be huge down the road.
Absolutely. Well, and I love your point. I mean, I have a lot of friends in all types of industries, and they all don't agree with me that being a teacher and educator is the greatest gig. You have quite a few, and they're like, I could never do what you do. But I will tell you this: the people I try to surround myself with, they're as passionate about whatever they do as I am about education, and they see a positive influence in what they think it will do for the world. Whether that means they're selling cars or they're programming computers or whatever that is, they believe that what they're doing will positively impact society and their community. And those are the people that I want to hang around with, right? And I believe it's true. I believe all of us have that role and to make the world a better place.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. Again, it goes back to impact, right? Everybody sees how they impact the world differently and how they're going to go about it. I know if I asked you this question a year ago, or if I ask it to you a year from now, your answers may be different. But right now, what's the biggest motivator in your life right now?
Oh, wow. For me, at our school, we have been casting some really bold visions about how we really want to realize this idea of authentic learning, student agency, as well as agile frameworks to really bring about, I think, education in different light. So I would answer that I'm excited about every next step right now. I have envisioned where it is going, and that I know that we are still along the path, and there's some really neat adventures. I know there's some things already that we've mapped out that we're going to see more and more of as we walk down this path, but I also know there's going to be a few incredible natural wonders that just jump out along the journey that we're not expecting. And that's what I'm excited about. I love the adjacent possibilities that happen whenever you map out a great plan. So I'm excited about the known that's coming in front of us that we're planning for. And I'm excited about the unknown that will also be probably some of the most glorious outcomes of all.
What are the plans in the future for both yourself and for All Saints? What's down the road?
Yeah. So, right now I think I mentioned to you off air that we have 13 major projects this summer that we are working on construction wise on campus. And we've been very busy over the last 4 years doing the same things. We have built out outdoor learning classrooms. And this summer, we're adding 3 more outdoor learning cabins in our 15 acres in the woods we call the Outdoor Learning Center. And so, I'm excited about having our students leave a traditional classroom setting and actually literally go out into the woods for their classroom experience and to see that happening. So for us, we have several things that we're living out every day, and we are launching something that we just got funded with EE Forward and what we're calling A3 Learning. And A3 Learning is looking at authentic learning, agency, and agile frameworks to help schools better achieve what they want to do, and especially in those outcomes for students in relevant learning. And so we'll be launching this year where we're going to be putting on a workshop here for teachers, but more importantly for students to come and to talk about those 3 A's, and then also helping people go out and present these at conferences and share, as well as creating this network, a kind of a gamified approach to leveling up so that as people become A3 students or teachers, they get certified in what this means so they can share that information and those resources with others. So we're really excited about what that's going to look like. And we're thankful for EE Forward and having confidence in us and funding this project going forward.
You mentioned the phrase agile framework. For my listeners who don't know what that is as it pertains to education, what are the positive sides of having an agile framework?
We really, we base a lot of our agile work off the book Scrum, which a lot of people are familiar with. So it really helps, I think, put context to it. We've created our own way of scrumming. We do have Scrum Masters here and such, but we've created a system that we're able to move away from that watershed problem solving that used to be the way that not only schools, but many industries use as their way of solving, that we have to contemplate every last detail and every possible problem to the overall solution before we move forward. Schools, though, I believe, were absolutely the worst at this. Like that we had to have everything run through a committee. We had to know exactly how it would look for a teacher, a student, a parent. And then we had to go back and we had to do 2 more rounds of that committee. Then we had to create a glossy. And then by the time we were finished, all the kids we had dreamed this up for had already graduated from our school. We might be implementing it, right? And so one of the things that our school has helped us move so fast is that we are using the Scrum framework to make us move fast. We don't have to know everything about what it will look like. We have to know what our immediate problems are we're trying to solve. What are those opportunities in front of us? Right behind me here is our main scrum board for the campus. And it's not real full right now because it is, we just launched it this week for this coming school year. But we've averaged about 80 campus-wide initiatives since I've been here each year. And that's because, one, the agile process lets us just tackle problems. We don't have to know all the answers. And then secondly, it allows us to do it incrementally and as a team. And that's something I love about our system and about both agile frameworks is that you don't have to wait on the owner. I mean, the middle school head may not be the person who is raising a question that might solve a middle school problem. It can be someone else on the team that creates a scrum team around that particular issue. And so, it gives agency to our team. And that is something that I believe is vital as well, is that, you have to have people that are working to solve what they are most passionate about around campus. And a teacher that's teaching history should care about history and teach that class. But that's just an avenue for them to be a leader on campus in other places, right? So why not let them lead an outdoor learning challenge or something else if they're also passionate about that?
Yeah, the Scrum framework really helps with distributing leadership.
Yes.
Right? Many people, which I have always found a wonderful way to get people involved and engaged. And again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, having an impact where they may not have otherwise had an impact.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate that you bring that to the table at your school. I would like to get to know you just a little bit better. So what's something you've always wanted to do, but you haven't done?
Oh, wow. So I'm a big car guy. I'm a car enthusiast. And so I actually have a couple of garages. I have a small garage at my house, and then I have a shop that I actually have built over the last few years here where I have some major projects. So I love cars, and it's my one thing, because I love school. And so I literally would work all the time because I do enjoy it, but I've learned that's not healthy. And so my shop has become this great release for me, especially as my wife and I have become empty nesters. So one of the things that is on my bucket list that my wife and I actually had planned to do until the pandemic hit was we were going to do a tour of Europe where we go on a supercar tour. And we actually, for 10 days, drive 10 different supercars and get to just go experience some of the greatest roads and greatest cars in the world. And so that's on my bucket list right now, that we're hoping to do that in the next 12 months.
Now, that's a great bucket list item. Not one I've heard before. And I think it's important, too, to have self-care. It's an important part of being a leader, important part of actually living life is taking care of ourselves. And I tell that to my listeners all the time when going through different topics, is that you need to be able to take care of yourself before you can take care of other people. Right. So I'm glad that you found that time for yourself. Yes. What I would like to do, like usually here, I like to wrap up sessions with two questions for listeners that I ask of all my guests, something that I feel like closes out a show. And so what's something that most people don't know about you?
I think that a lot of people don't know that I was in the Navy for 10 years. I served as a CB in the Navy, working for the 9th Regiment Marines. And, honestly, I went into the Navy because I needed to fund my college, and the GI Bill helped me do that. But it has been one of those defining experiences in my life. I obviously didn't decide to become a career military person, but I learned so much attention to detail. I learned about how to do systems. And then now in my role as head of school doing construction projects for 10 years, I was with a construction battalion. And oh my goodness, it comes in handy all the time. So a lot of people don't know that. Very different part of my world. Wore a uniform for 10 years and now wear a bow tie every day. So very different.
Very different. Very different. And I did not know that about you. So I appreciate you sharing that with me. The final question, it's always a good one. I like people to fill in the blank to this question, but happiness is a...
Oh, wow. That's great. Okay. So happiness is a choice is what I'd say to that I believe that we all have a choice to see the upside, to be positive no matter what's going on. One thing that I've shared with my daughter for all her life is that I don't like the phrase, everything happens for a reason. I don't like that. I don't believe in that. That's just doesn't help with me. But I do believe there's reason in everything that happens. It's up to you to decide what that is. And so, as I've gone through life and certainly have had challenges and things that have happened that weren't positive, I've chosen to try to find the reason in that, to try to find what I can grow and learn from that, or how I can use that wound, that pain or whatever to help somebody else. And so that's been a huge one for me. So I definitely believe happiness is a choice.
Mike, I don't think I could have closed the show any better than happiness is a choice. You choose to be happy. It is all about mindset. So thank you for closing the show that way. People wanted to learn more about you or learn more about All Saints and the work that you do. Where can they find you? How can they get in touch about the good work that you're doing?
Well, I appreciate that. No, I'd love for people to check out what we're doing at All Saints Episcopal School in Tyler. And you can find our website at all-saints.org. You can also follow me on Twitter. FunDMC01 is what my Twitter handle is. And again, we would love to have people come visit. So if anyone ever has the opportunity and would love to see what our expression of authentic learning and student agencies looks like, they have an open invitation anytime.
Sounds great, Mike. Thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jason. I love your podcast. I'm a huge fan of you, but now of Positivity on Fire. So thanks for putting out all that great work.
Wow. Thanks for the kind word.
All right. Thank you.
I think we all could use a little bit more grace, positivity, and support in our lives. And the concept of G.P.S. is a good one to help get us there. Here are 3 things I learned from my conversation with Mike today. 1, grace, positivity, and support can bring a community together during times of high expectations. 2, mindset matters, especially optimism, when working with school-aged children. And 3, whether we want to believe it or not, happiness, my friends, is a choice. If you like today's episode, please give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen. And please share this episode, as word of mouth is the only way this show's message grows. And finally, as I close every show, thank you for being here today, my friends. Your gift of time listening to the show means the world to me. And as always, be well, be happy, be you. And until next time, may your quest for positivity begin today.
I tell you a great story. A student named Jet, who was a great musician, had been using some of our Fab Lab resources, but really cared more about music. But he developed a problem with his hand where when he was strumming for long gigs, he couldn't grip the guitar pick anymore. So he decided he was going to figure out how to solve his problem. He created this really cool device that held a guitar pick that you didn't have to have grip strength. It basically went through your hands like a ring.
For more on my positivity quest, follow me at _JAY Ramsden on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. If you like today's episode, please give us a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast app, or visit podchaser.com and search for Positivity on Fire. Positivity on Fire is a production of Impact One Media, LLC. All rights reserved.